please. Oh, beautiful, far heroes proved in liberating strife. Who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, make God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, far spacious skies, far amber waves of grain, far purple mountain majesties, over the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America. You know, God done shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good. Yes, he did. Any brotherhood from sea to shining sea. You know, I wish I had somebody to help me sing this. America, I love you, America. You see, my God, he done shed his face on thee. You ought to love him for it, 'cause he crowned my good. He told me he would. Every brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I thank you, Lord. Now, I'm going to introduce our guests, and then I'm going to give you a background on the riot and what happened, and then we'll hear from our guests. The riot, Bea was here. She can speak to us as much as I can, if not more. The riot didn't just happen that May 17th, 45 years ago. It didn't just happen. There were things that led up to it that contributed to the violence and the hate. One of those things was a little 11-year-old black girl in South Dade County. After school one day, a Florida Highway patrolman stopped her, told her she looked like a kid who had stolen some candy. He had this child get into the back seat of his patrol car. He drives out into a field with this child. Stops, all this in the newspaper. Stops, gets into the back seat with his baby, and starts fondling her. She started to cry, started crying, so he stopped. But he did that, put his hands in, he did that. And since she started crying, he stopped, took her home. She was living with her aunt and uncle in South Dade at the time. He tells her on the way home, don't tell anybody, we're friends now, don't tell anybody about this. The child got home and her aunt thought she was acting strangely. And finally, within a few hours, she told her aunt what had happened. And she remembered that the visor of the cop car said Officer Jones, Trooper Jones. Within an hour, the head of the Florida Highway Patrol was at the house with a picture of Trooper. Yes, that's him. Now here's where I had a problem with Janet Reno, who was state attorney at the time, a friend of mine. Janet let him resign from the Florida Highway Patrol before she had him arrested. So it wouldn't be in the papers that a Florida Highway Patrol molested a child on duty. There was some sort of an agreement with the child's aunt or somebody, and he was supposed to pay her a psychological bill, and he disappeared, paid one time, and officer, he's gone. We have not heard from him since. That was one thing that angered black people. Then Randy Heath, a young black man in Hialeah, with his sister driving through the warehouse district, stopped to urinate. A Hialeah police officer comes up to him and puts his gun to Randy's head and tells him not to move, and the man turned his head and blew his brains out. Randy Heath. We found out later that the trigger had been adjusted so that it popped off. Randy Heath got killed by a Hialeah cop. He got no punishment. In fact, the month after he killed Randy, the Hialeah Police Department sent him on a sharpshooting convention in Texas. Nothing happened to him for that kid. Then there was Johnny Jones. Dr. Johnny Jones was the first black superintendent of education in Dade County. He was popular. Oh, he was a great man. He took care of kids. Johnny Jones. Got tied up in what they call a gold plumber case, where he was allegedly using school system money to put personal things in it, gold plumbing in his home in Naples he was doing. He gets all wrapped up in that. But a lot of people felt that had he been a white superintendent, nothing would have happened. But Johnny got taken down because he was the most powerful black man in Dade County at that time. So Johnny falls. And now we are into December 1979. Arthur McDuffie was a young man, had been in the Marine Corps, no police record, had a family, North Dade. And one night late in December, he decides to borrow a motorcycle to drive down to see some friends in South Dade. And that night, when he was coming back north to return that motorcycle, he was speeding. I know that he was speeding because I did a book. I co-authored a book on his riding. He was speeding up North Miami Avenue. He gets to a stoplight, and there's a sergeant, a Dade County sergeant, Ira Diggs was his name, sitting in his unit. It's late at night. And McDuffie apparently saw him, but he popped the wheelie and gave the finger. He sped off. Shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have done that. But it should not have gotten him killed. They take after him in 8, 10, 12 police cars are following McDuffie up North Miami Avenue at speeds that approached, if not exceeded, 100 miles an hour. At Northeast 38th Street, where the 112 ramp is, if you don't mind, McDuffie stopped voluntarily on his own, and they swarmed. And all of this is in the record because there was a trial. They're not making any of this up. They swarmed. The first one to get to him was Charles Laverca. Charles Laverca grabs McDuffie, but before he can get him off the motorcycle, other cops are grabbing him. They were hyped up. The speed that chase did one thing, that increased what was happening, the tempo of what was happening. But this is also a black man. And I doubt that what happened next would have happened to a Cuban American or a white person. They started beating him so bad that one of the sergeants there said, "Easy, one at a time." They get McDuffie on the ground, handcuffed behind his back, head against the curb. Alex Marrero, one of the officers, straddles McDuffie's body and takes one of those Cal lights the cops carry, comes down and strikes McDuffie in the back of the head. His head couldn't recoil because it was against the... He didn't die right then, but he starts to die. One of the officers during the trial said he was standing 5 feet away and blood spattered on his pant leg. But Marvin hit McDuffie like that. Then they tried to cover it up. They did cover it up. They had one of the officers get in his police car and ride up on the bike. They took their batons and beat the bike up. And then they made a mistake, a very, very big mistake. They took their nightsticks and they broke the gauges on both sides of the gas tank. So when that bike got to Dr. Ronald Wright, who was the medical examiner at the time, Dr. Wright wanted to know, well, if there was an accident and the bike fell over, why is the glass broken on both sides? And that started the first questions about the lies that they were telling about what had happened to McDuffie that night. Christmas Eve, Charles Laverca is at his home in Coral Gables with his wife. He starts crying. His wife asks him, what's wrong? What's the problem? And he tells her that guy's in the papers now. There was no accident, we beat him. Now, Laverca's dad was a cop, a major in the police department. He takes Laverca to see Janet Reno. And then Janet indicts 6 of these people for this event. No riot. Black folks upset, but there was no riot. All these photographs showing how badly McDuffie had been beaten, all the lies they tried to put, no, there was no riot. The newspaper was saying, be calm, let justice deliver a proper verdict. So the case was too hot for Miami. Judge Lenora Nesbitt had the case. She became a federal judge later. And Lenora Nesbitt said, I'm not trying this case in Miami, it's too hot. So she transferred the case to Tampa. And the case was tried in Tampa. Now you folks in the sun, y'all can move now. I have to stand up, put up with the sun. And move up front. It's just gonna get hotter, but that's up to you. So the case goes over to Tampa. There had been a similar incident in Tampa just a few months before. All-white jury acquitted a Tampa cop for beating a black man who was on a motorcycle. So some black folks were saying, don't take this to Tampa, they just had that mess over there. Case goes to Tampa. And listen to this, because there would not have been a riot had this not happened. Again, Janet made a mistake, in my view. In my view. She decided to try all 6 of them at once, rather than individually. I think the reason she did that was that she didn't want the community to go through 6 trials. To put them all in one basket and try them all at one time. The problem with doing that is that each officer, based upon the charges against him, had 5 peremptory challenges. That is, that officer, each officer had 5 persons they could remove from the jury without giving a reason. Not you, you're gone. So what they did, what the attorneys for these people did, they went to the jury pool and looked in. And they counted the number of blacks in the jury pool. And they eliminated them all with the peremptory challenge. So the jury pool was all white, because they could do that. So the case gets tried. We're following it in Dade County. Goes to the jury Saturday, May 17th. It was a beautiful day. Beautiful day. The Royal Poinciana trees had, you can tell us. But the Royal Poinciana trees, I'd never seen them so red. It was just a glorious season for those trees to show off. Anyway, so the case goes to the jury that afternoon. Now, a lot of us, I'm home in Coconut Grove, think, well, this is the wrong case, all these officers. The jury will probably organize itself. Come on in, we'll find a chair for you. Come on in. The jury will probably find find someone to head it up and they start deliberating. They were not out 2 hours. Now 2 hours before they came back, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, including Alice Morera, who breaks down crying in court. And that afternoon, there were photographs of Eula McDuffie's mom, being led out of the courthouse after the verdict, crying, my son, my son. They beat him like a dog. We're all watching this. So, as that afternoon wore on, The police knew there was going to be trouble in Liberty City. So they blocked off the east end of Liberty City at 7th Avenue, the west end at 22nd Avenue, to stop white people from being able to get along 62nd Street, where people were just pouring out of that Liberty Square housing project onto 62nd Street. Angry, angry, angry. There was a car driven by Michael Culp. His brother Jeffrey Culp was in the car next to him. Deborah Getman, she's 15 years old, white girl, she was in the back seat, asleep. They weren't even from here. They were trying to find Miami Beach. And a lie got passed around that there was a drunk white man being beaten up somewhere over into Liberty City. So the two cars that were stopping traffic at 22nd Avenue left. That's how Michael Culp got through that roadblock. He gets to about 12th Avenue, a little bit past 12th Avenue, and the car just pelted, bricks, bottles. Michael lost control of the car, swerves across the median strip, and strikes the building, one of the buildings in that housing project. There was a 10-year-old black girl standing there where that car hit and scraped her along that wall and severed her leg, crushed her spine. Shanreka. When I got there, I got a call from a UPI reporter. Dr. Dunn, do you know they're beating up white people up on 62nd Street? No, I didn't know. So I got into my car, drove up to 62nd and 12th Parkway, and that's where Michael was, on the ground. They had pulled him out of the car. His brother Jeffrey was in the median strip. I thought it was some discarded clothing when I first drove up. But Michael was on the ground, and there was about 12 or 15 young black men around him. And they were using a Miami Herald newspaper dispenser, street dispenser, to repeatedly strike Michael Culp in the head. In broad daylight, with hundreds of people watching, including me. Then I heard one of the people who was beating Michael Culp say, "We're gonna get Uncle Tom niggas next." They were talking about me and other black leaders that they felt failed them. What do? You're watching what basically was a lynching in broad daylight. The people saying, "You're next." So I got in my car, I drove down to 46th Street where state troopers were massed. Clarence Dixon was in charge. The black man became police chief. I said, "Clarence, y'all need to go up to 62nd. He said, "Doc, we're not ready. We need an armored vehicle before we go in there." So it was close to midnight before they finally got into Liberty City to get these boys out. Deborah Getman got saved because someone in that housing project brought her into the back door and hid her until they could get a cab to get her out. In the meantime, this child who got injured, the story I have, she can tell you now, someone took a sheet off a clothesline and wrapped her leg up in that and sent her to the hospital. And then the riot proceeded from there until that Monday. 18 people died, 10 blacks, 8 whites. The National Guard came in. They never took control. The riot sort of just sputtered itself out. They never were in control of it. That Monday, folks had to go to work. So the thing just sort of calmed down on its own. But that was the Miami riot of 1980. And Liberty City has not recovered from that. Has not recovered from that. Now we have 2 people here who can speak to that event personally. I'm going to ask Bea to go first. Any comments we have, any thoughts we have, and Shanreka will have a chance to also speak. Who doesn't know Bea Hines? If you don't know Bea Hines, Bea Hines was the first black reporter black female reporter hired by the Miami Herald. She's an institution. She's a legend. She says what she wants to say. That's why I love her. So Bea was here during that era. Any comment you want to make, Bea, before we have Shanreka speak, please.
Thank you, Dr. Marvin Dunn. As I listened to you, a flood of memories, a lot of memories flooded my mind. The song, first of all, when I first became a columnist for Miami Herald, I wrote a poem that angered a lot of people, mostly white people. I said I didn't like the Star Spangled Banner. And I said why I didn't like it, because it spoke of bombs bursting, it didn't speak of peace. But I said a better song, national anthem, would be America the Beautiful. And nobody saw that line, even some of the people at the Miami Herald. In fact, the publisher called me on the property that I insulted all these wonderful white men who fought for this country. And I said, but didn't you read the rest of it? I said, a better song would be America the Beautiful, which tells a story about a beautiful country and talks of peace and makes you feel good. But they didn't see that. And so at the time, I was one of the participants in Civil Night Awards, and I sang the Star Spangled Banner for about 3 years in a row. But after I wrote that column, they didn't let me sing it anymore. Which was all right, because I used to have to write the words in my hand anyway, so I wouldn't forget it. But anyway, then the other thing that reminded me of that day, as you were talking, Marvin, I thought about where I was on the day the riots started. And although they were blocking off the streets in Liberty City, I was living in Carroll City at the time. And a friend of mine was doing some work on my house, but he was off that day for Saturday. I just finished cleaning up. And we'd gone to school together, and so he called me and said, "B, girl, you need to get down here." The N's, he said the N-words, they're headed to the courthouse. They're going to tear things up. So they first started at the city center, and then they moved back to Liberty City. But they were headed to the courthouse because they figured that's where they needed to go after this decision. Well, everybody that I know was heartbroken over that. I felt for McDuffie's mother. I have 2 sons, and they grew up with me telling them we black parents had something that we called we taught our children, especially our boy children, what to do if they were stopped by a white cop. First of all, you get the badge number and try to remember the name. And don't say anything. If they ask you a question, say, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Policeman." Do that. Whatever you have to do to survive. But get the badge number. And then we will do what we have to do to see if we can carry on from there. And so I understood her grief and her feelings. But that was one of the roughest times to me. I had been through, the McDuffie riot was like the 3rd riot that we had witnessed in Miami. The first one was in '68. The next one was in 1970. I was a new reporter. In fact, the riot started the day before my first day on the job as a reporter for the Miami Herald. Gladys Taylor. That's right. That was actually Gladys Taylor was trying to cash her check, her welfare check, and in this store was AMG, I believe, and she had been cashing her check there before, but she got tired. They were taking a lot of money. Gladys had about 6 children, and they were taking a big chunk of her welfare check. And she got angry, and she started fussing with the manager of the store about it one night. And some black guys were on the outside. They didn't like how the manager was treating Gladys. So they got into a little scuffle, a little fist fight. And then from there it started, everybody else started jumping in. And of course, my dear friend, the late Georgia Ayers, somebody called her, and she came down and was trying to quiet, the riot, the people, and making them go home. And the police grabbed her and broke her arm. And they had to, that happened to her. And they kind of had to pay her a lot of money after that. But even so, Gladys went on. As I said, I was a new reporter. I didn't even have credentials. They sent me out to cover the riot with other white reporters. But I could get in meetings where the white reporters could not because I was black. But if they had known that I was a reporter, they wouldn't let me in because they didn't want the news media in, they didn't want anybody in. And so I would go to the meetings after the riot had quieted down some, and I would have to memorize. Okay. I would have to memorize what I saw and what I heard. I had to memorize names and everything. And because I couldn't take notes, they would know. They would become suspicious. But Gladys Knight was a smart woman. Gladys Taylor, really. I'm sorry, Gladys Knight. Gladys Taylor was very smart. People didn't think she was because Gladys talked, yeah, you can talk about Gladys.
My mother knew Gladys Taylor very well. Gladys was the head of the welfare rights, and she was smart and had a booming voice. And Gladys elevated normal street cussing to an art form. That woman could cuss. Yes, indeed. And what I heard happen between her and the store owner was that she complained about the check, and he told her, well, you can take your black ass and shop someplace else. You don't tell Gladys that. Oh my God. And I'm sure the cussing between the two of them must have reached new depths even for Gladys. But that's who she was. She confronted her kids. She had bad kids. She defended them. She would go down to the school. Oh, you mother! Class like planting in the school board, baby. Don't cuss the school board. I don't give a goddamn. Don't put my child up. Oh, that was Gladys. God, we needed people like that at the time. Anyway, so go back.
Gladys, she blew my cover. She kept asking me, and what agency are you with? And I said, I'm just a concerned citizen. She didn't believe me. And then she kept doing it, and so finally I just told her, I said, Gladys, I'm a reporter. And that, they all knew then. But before they found out, one day, one morning I walked into a meeting, and I hadn't written the story, but I dictated it to one of the copy editors. I didn't want my name on it, because some people, I grew up in Liberty City, and some people still knew me. And so the next day when I walked into the meeting, I heard two good guys talking, and one of them said, man, did you see that story in the paper this morning? That was accurate. It was word for word. We had a spy in here. And I went, that was me. Because I was so proud of that my story was accurate, and they didn't say I lied or I twisted the facts or anything. They said it was word for word, and that meant a lot to me. So anyway, after my cover is blown, first of all, they gave me the job on a 3-month trial basis. And then after 2 weeks of covering Riot and Riot stuff, they decided, Larry Jenks, bless his heart, decided, he said, B, if you want the job, it's yours. Forget about the 3 months trial basis. And before then, I had been in the Miami Herald Library. I'd worked for the Herald for 4.5 years before I became a reporter. So they all knew me. And so after then, I'm a bona fide reporter now. I'm a cover reporter. And now the trials start. But they didn't know they were going to need me when the McDuffie riot came. I was one of the reporters on the street. I would call my stories in. I would dictate them to somebody else. They would rewrite them. And one of the people that I was dictating my story to, who happened to be a black woman who had come to us from the Miami News, and I would dictate my stories to her. I never got a byline. And sometimes black people can be just as evil to each other as anybody else. And I think she thought because I had been at the Miami for a long time that I thought I was more than what I should have been, whatever. And so she never included my name in not one of those stories. But I hit the pavement, I talked to people, and when I wasn't talking to people and doing a story, I was in a police car with Georgia Ayers and Carrie Meek. And we were riding around the city, Liberty City, trying to stop kids, trying to get them to go home, trying to make them do the right thing. And the Dade County Police Department, I wish Lonnie Norris was here, because I know he has COVID, because he would remember this. They gave us a driver and a car, and we rode all the way through Liberty City. I remember we were on 71st Street, And this is way after the riot had calmed down. And there was a police officer in a car. He had his car there, and he had stopped a young black man and had him up against the car. And Georgia said to our driver, "Stop the car, stop the car." And not like that. Stop this so-and-so car. And then she jumped out, and Carrie, with her sweet self, she said, "Georgia, get back in the car, get back in the car, let them have it." And I remember Georgia saying to dear Carrie, who she loved dearly, "If you can't stand the heat, get out the kitchen." And she kept going. And whatever they were doing to that boy, they stopped. When Georgia got there, they stopped, let him go, and then they drove, and she got back in the car. But those were very trying times. Tensions were high in Miami. People were hating on each other. I remember the story about our next guest, and I was so sad over what had happened to her. But look at her now. She's beautiful, and she survived. And I guess I can pass this out to her.
Thank you, Bea. Thank you so much. For those of you who arrived late, Shanreka Perry was 10 years old when this happened. She was standing on 62nd Street when the first car driven by whites came through 62nd Street, pelted by bottles, bricks, and what have you, lost control of the vehicle. The car came across the street, struck a building, and Shanreka was standing there. And drug her along that building, severed her leg, crushed her spine. And she survived it all. And she's with us today, Shanreka Perry.
My speech coming in here. My name is Shanreka Perry, as most people already know. 56 years old today. No, not today. I'm 56 years old today. I no longer live in Miami. I reside in Macon, Georgia. I'm retired from Miami-Dade Corrections. I worked there for 26 years. And I'm tell you my story. I have bullets that I was outside playing baseball with some of my friends, and I saw my aunt and my sister going to the store, and my mom had just left the store, and she told my aunt and my sister to go back and get whatever it was that she had forgotten. And from the park that I was in, I could see my aunt and sister walking. So instead of me walking to the second base, I ran to the store, to the corner, to ask for something from the store. At that time, there was no riot going on. My grandmother heard over the air that, they were starting a riot in every city. So she called my mom and told my mom to go out and get the kids. She knew where my older sister was, and she had already called my brother home, so I was the only one left out playing. But by the time she got to me, my mom saw me get hit. That day, I don't recall much from that day. I guess from the trauma, you don't really recall. I just recall standing there. So, look at some of my notes. Once the verdict, hit the riot against the Empty City area, the Koch brothers was driving east, going towards I-95. They was coming from a fishing trip. Someone threw a rock into the windshield and hit him in the face. I think it was Jeffrey Koch driving at the time. And when the rock hit him in the face, he lost control of his car, came across the median, and the yard that I was standing in, he hit me and pinned me to that wall and drugged me along the wall. The car caught fire. The people that was out there, they lift the car up to pull me from under the car, but because the damage was so bad, they couldn't save the leg. Their police had already, like he said, stopped surrounded the area so outsiders could come in. So whoever was in. So therefore, ambulance, no one could come in. So a society cab happened to be coming through at the time. So they put me in a society cab, and the cab took me to the hospital. By the time my mom reached the hospital, they told my mom I didn't make it. On my way to the morgue, they say I moved the cover. So it was one nurse. She stayed working on me by herself until she got a scoring pulse, and she called the doctors back, and they started working back on me. And there was the challenges. The first challenge, it was accepting my new normal of me having one leg. Giving up has never been an option for me. I started going through therapy, rehab at Jackson. Of course, being an 11-year-old, I didn't want to do much that they told me to do. I would cry. But it was one therapist, Curtis Locke, and he's here today. He did not care about me crying. He did not care. He had me in a room in the back by myself. And he made sure I learned how to walk, fall, everything. And not only that, everything in my life, any special event, Curtis has been there. So during that time that I had to go through rehabilitation, they would allow me to go home on the weekends so I could learn how to deal with at home the new norm. And my 5th grade teacher, she wanted me to come to her house. Her and her husband came to the hospital and learned how to do everything to care for me so I would be able to come to their house. And that was Ellen and Charles Vitale. They're not here today, but I could not tell my story without mentioning them in my story. So, continue the support that I received. I had so much support from the surrounding area, the community. Although the city of Miami police was involved and they was one of the main reasons that started the riot, they were hands down. They did fundraisers, them along with WDR radio staff, athlete range, just so many people in that neighborhood, my family, my childhood friends. Some of them are here today, even some of the ones that I happened to have been playing baseball with that day is here. So thank you all for coming. Okay, one of the challenges that I've had to deal with, and sometimes I feel so defeated with this challenge, is disabled parking. I just sometimes feel people take advantage of disabled parking. Life is hard. I have had so many challenges dealing with medical, everything from 1980. I have had hepatitis C because back then in 1980, they did not test blood for hepatitis C. But I have been cured from that. I've had multiple surgeries. I've had cancer. I've had so many things stemming back from that. And I'm not telling you all that for the sympathy, but I'm telling you all that because I do want to be encouraged to let people know that you all can make it no matter what. But most of all, I want people to have more considerations for people that need those parking spaces and people that need that shopping cart, that electric cart in public and Walmart. And I would gladly give any one of you that parking spot if I could have your left leg. I would be happy to walk the distance. So just keep in mind sometimes you may think that I'm going to park here for 5 minutes, but that 5 minutes when I pull up, I don't know that you're in that store for 5 minutes. So I'm going to pass it by and park somewhere else. So I may have to walk the distance. So I just really would appreciate if people would be more considerate of that. And having a voice, it's so important to have a voice. I've learned a long time ago, having a voice is so important. When I was little, a young girl, coming home, in my house, it was rarely spoke about me having a disability. It was just unspoken about, I didn't want them walking on pins and needles around me. I didn't have to do chores. I didn't have to do anything. So I started doing chores until my mom put me back in the rotation. And one day, I was talking, I can't remember who I was having this conversation with, but I was telling them that I was out buying ice cream. And used to be to this, it was at this house, we called this man God Daddy. It was my aunt God Daddy, but all of us called him God Daddy. He sold ice cream cones. And I was sitting on the steps and someone hit the bottle and the bottle cut my left leg. And I was telling that person, that left leg never meant me any damn good. So my mom was laughing and it broke the ice. It instantly broke the ice in my house because they knew I wasn't sensitive about me having one leg. Also, being at work, you have to know your rights. I was accommodated for some things at work, but sometimes people don't have the sympathy or concern to say, well, she has one leg, or this is something, you wasn't doing me a favor. This is something that was created for people with disabilities, and you have to do a special accommodation for them. So if you don't speak up for yourself, people will not accommodate you, and they won't care about accommodating you. And that goes for the workplace, relationships, anywhere. And I had to learn having a voice is important. Sometimes my voice, I'm very opinionated sometimes, and I stand up for myself a lot. So sometimes people see standing up for yourself can be a bad thing, but if I don't stand up for me, who else will? And also, I learned being grateful. Me having one leg has taught me to be grateful. And it's not many kids here, but sometimes I have shared this story with kids. So maybe you all can pass this story with your kids. I can remember the Christmas before I lost my leg. My mom bought me and my sister a bike. Back then, they called it truck bikes, but it wasn't the popular bike. 10 speeds was popular. So I wanted the 10 speed. My mom told us don't let anybody ride our bikes. We used to sneak. The same people that we thought may be picking at our bikes, we allowed some of those people to ride our bikes. But more importantly, what I learned from that was the last bike I was ever able to ride. So being grateful for what you have, I just want kids to know, be grateful and appreciative for what you have, because you never know the last time, or if this would be the last time that you would be able to do or have that. The last thing in closing, I would like to say thank you. My mom is no longer here, but I thank her. Out of 7 months, my mom missed 3 days. And that's because she was in the hospital herself. My dad did not live in the house with me, but my dad, I knew, was going to be a phone call away. My siblings, they're here today. They became my protectors. My aunts, my uncles, my entire family, they have been nothing but support. All of my friends, old friends and new friends, I appreciate them, how they treated me. It wasn't always they thought about me having one leg. It was sometimes we would go in buildings, we would be walking and talking, and they'll look back, I'm still outside. They forgot to hold the door for me. But I appreciated that because I could get the door, and it didn't leave them focused on me having one leg. I was treated normal, and that's what I wanted to be treated, as I was just one of them. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. My Auntie Daz is here, my Uncle Gary is here, there in the back. Miss Monica, my sister Latoya, my brother Jermaine, my Uncle Florence. Oh, my sister Tyosha, I didn't know she was here, but she's here. All my family and childhood friends, all my friends that's here to support me. I thank each and every one of you all for being here. It means so much to me that I have your support, and it's going to continue to support. And I love you all. In closing, Curtis, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you have done and continue to do to be there for me. Marvin Dunn, I thank you. You dedicated your book to me years ago when I was a little girl, and I remember that and I appreciate that. And I thank you for today, for allowing me to share my story. This is my brother. And I thank you all for listening to my story. And I hope that, again, you all will be encouraged. You all would share my story and just let the kids know, about the story. And you can always Google my name if you forget. You could Google Shanreka Perry, or you could Google Author McDuffie. All the information is there. Again, thank you.
We would not be here today had it not been for her. She called me saying, Dr. Dunn, coming up on the 45th anniversary of the event, what are you doing? I hadn't thought about it. So that's why we're here, because of her.